in the data world, it's easy to get caught up in the technology and the tools and the skills and of all the different flavors of tech you could have chosen to work in. You chose the one that is most about people. No matter how long you've been in this field or what your specialty is in data, always go back to how can I use data to make the business people I work with successful, and then ultimately that will feed back to your own success.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we talk to amazing data professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. And we always include fun bits because we're all nerds here and we love to have fun. And we're highlighting the fun bits that make data professionals the awesome data professionals they are. So today with us, we have Ryan Dolley. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Monica, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, this is exciting. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Glad to have you. So we start out our episodes by getting people's origin stories and understanding their background. So if you could let us know how you got to where you are today in your career.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm where I am today is I'm the vice president of product strategy at Good Data. That's kind of my day job. And then with my brother Eric, I am one of the co-hosts of the Super Data Brothers podcast. I don't know, YouTube show. I don't know what to call it, but so those are the two kind of hats I wear. And how I got there, my origin story, if you go all the way back, I think is that I'm obviously a nerd, and so I was super into comic books as a kid, and I used to go to Excel like in 1992 on my dad's work laptop, and I would key in like the attributes, strength, speed, intelligence of all my favorite superheroes, and then I would build charts so that I could compare them, like how much stronger is the Hulk than the Silver Surfer and that sort of thing. And that's really, I think, where my love of this sort of thing kicked off, just like was with an early love of data visualization in a weird way. I don't know too many other 9-year-olds who were making pie charts and bar charts for fun as like weekend activity. But yeah, and then so that kind of started it. And then actually I spent most of my 20s doing something totally different professionally, right? So I was actually a playwright and an actor on the East Coast and in Chicago for most of my 20s. And at some point I realized that if, while that was very fulfilling, it didn't pay anything. And so I realized that I needed to do something for professionally to kind of really just to make more money, right? I was reaching the end of my 20s, and I was like, I'm tired of being a poor person in their 20s. It's not fun anymore. And so I kind of harkened back to my days of building those charts, I think, and went back to night school to get a certification in information systems. Coming out of that, I got a job at a BI department. And from there, kind of the job in the career in analytics, kind of takes off from there, right? So that's really, not the most direct path or traditional background to analytics, but I think what I love about it is the storytelling piece. That I think that's the through line through all of that. The love of comic books, the building the charts, the studying theater, and then now working in data. That's what unites it all is my love of kind of storytelling and helping people, impacting people's lives through data.
Mm-hmm. And what exactly do you do today? What is your main roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, well, It's a lot.
I bet.
So really, yeah, I mean, what I do through good data. So as the VP of product strategy, I'm actually, I'm in charge of the direction of the product, both from kind of a product roadmap and um, feature direction, right? So like what are we going to try to do? We have a philosophy of what sort of analytics tool we're trying to build, and then it's my job to actually translate, first to help come up with that philosophy, and then to help translate that into, okay, what tool can actually deliver that philosophy, which for us is kind of this engineering analytics as code, right? Taking the front end, the visualizations, and kind of taking an engineering mindset to that is a big piece of our philosophy. And so, like, how do I turn that into product features? And then, so a lot of what I do is, I stay on top of what's happening in the data industry. I talk to people, both through my show and then professionally, or through my work at Good Data. Understand the trends, try to understand how things are changing, what data practitioners need that maybe they aren't getting out of traditional BI tools like Power BI or Tableau, right? And then translate that into like a product vision that our engineers can build. And so, that's a lot. What I mean, what I really do, I feels like on a day-to-day basis is attend meetings, but you know, uh, but that's what the meetings are all about anyway.
Yeah, a lot of us in the corporate land, we are very meeting heavy.
Yeah, that's really to our detriment sometimes, I think. But yes, yeah, that's a lot of what I do. So it's really, I mean, it's a lot of fun, really, I think, and it's fun to be involved in like an innovative company that's trying new things, right?
Mhm. So it sounds like you're very tool heavy. Would that?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, right, because I'm kind of in charge of the product vision for an
Mm.
analytics tool, that a lot of my thinking at this point in my career is about the tool set and feature sets and personas and product market fit, right? Like I spend a lot of time thinking about kind of the intersection of data science and business intelligence, and like how do we make that better, like because it's really not very good right now. I think most places that are, what you really do is you've got kind of two silos, that you've got your data science people and your BI people, and you try to get them working together, but like the way they work is so different, right? Data scientists are writing Python, they're building models, they've got this workflow that is in many ways inspired by software engineering, right? With like deployment model, like CI/CD deployments and all that, right? All that sort of stuff. Then you got BI people who are much more concerned with um, actually communicating what's in the data rather than building a model, and not just communicating what's in. I mean, everybody wants to communicate what's in the data, right? Data scientists do that too, but BI people are about building like a communication platform, right? Whereas data scientists are often building kind of the platform that can answer analytical questions, or answering specific, we got to do a deep dive, build a model that you know and analyzes our churn or something, whereas BI people are
Mhm.
building this platform, And so all of that means, like, I do spend a lot of time thinking about the tooling and that sort of thing. But, I also spend a lot of time talking with practitioners and asking them, like, the so what is at the end of it. Like, I don't care. Um, I fundamentally believe, like, the tools, not that they don't matter, but like they have to serve a purpose, right? The tool
Mhm.
in and of itself is in data is no different than any other field of endeavor, right? The tool exists to help you accomplish something,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so that something is really, at the end of the day, what I'm concerned about, and how do I help people do that?
Yeah. So while you're looking at these tools and which ones are the best fit for your customers, what
Mhm.
are the data sets that you're using to test out the tools? Like, what are the funnest data problems that you like to solve?
Yeah, I mean, we So, a lot of like the data, it's interesting. I've reached a point in my career where like I'm not doing a lot of practitioner work anymore, which I don't, it's a double-edged sword in a way,
Mm,
right? Because I miss it. A lot of what I work with, like our customers, in a lot of times are really trying to solve. Um, it's really cross industry, right? So we if I were to think about kind of we have kind of this pocket of so there's like financial services that we sometimes work with, right? There's a couple of really big financial services firms, and then we have some like this very interesting IoT customer who's focused on it's like warehouse management and like cold chain, which is like not a thing I even knew about, but it's actually
mm,
it has to do with certain medications or vaccines have to be kept cold, and so the cold chain is like how do you prove that this particular vial never went above 34 degrees for
mm,
longer than an hour as it went from a manufacturing facility in New Jersey to a distribution site in Nigeria, right? And so like that's actually kind of an IoT sensor problem that they're trying to solve. Those are kind of the most interesting data sets that I think we work with. And then the problems, I mean, they're all over the place, right? It's like this IoT problem, and then there's this big bucket of like classic data warehousing BI problems that are kind of a lot of companies out there still struggle to just answer questions like the basic who did what, when, and why in their data, right?
mhm.
And so there's a big bucket of that too, just really fundamental. Like we need a way to distribute data to a large audience, and that's a lot of what we do too.
Yeah. Fun.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I like hearing about the different data sets that people are working with, and especially like what problems that they're trying to solve. I hadn't heard about that one specifically. I like that
Yeah, the cold chain thing is like it's like this critical, it's super important, right, for all of us,
one.
due to like its impact on public health, and yet it's something that I don't know, 1 out of 1,000 people, I had never heard of it either, but then once you hear about it, it's like, oh yeah, I can see like that's actually really important.
Mhm.
Having the audit trail to because you don't want to be giving someone a vaccine that is like not effective any longer, because it's something happened in transit and it warmed up too much and now it doesn't work, right? So being able to
Mhm.
prove that is actually really important. Like, and that's one of the things I love about data is there's so much stuff out there that like you've never heard of, and then you go out there and you when you learn about it and you learn the critical role data plays in something like that, right? That's what makes it such an
Mhm.
exciting career to me.
Mhm. And you said that it has a lot to do with IoT sensors, is how they
Yeah,
collect that data. I'm
right.
wondering, so it just makes me think of something similar with those like meal services, and they have to stay cold. Like if you have something like chicken, right? You don't want
Yeah,
that to go below a certain degrees for too long either. And I know that there's not like a little IoT in my box, so,
right.
like, how do they keep track of that?
Yeah. So like I can, right. I mean, what I can imagine they do, like what I would do in that
Mhm,
situation is I would, we would develop like some sort of reporting system where, we would first figure out, okay, what amount of time can like, is it 2 days? Is it 3 days? Like, what's the exact number of hours? And then of course we would just look at like, okay, what percentage of our deliveries, the amount of time that the package was out, we know it's good for 36 hours, right? And so we
mhm.
have to get everything delivered probably not by 36 hours, but by, 30 hours or 28 hours, because you don't want it showing up, it shows up on Monica's doorstep in Arizona, and it's, there's like a clock that's ticking, right?
Yep.
Just because it got left on the porch doesn't mean it's still going to be okay in 3 hours. And so, you know, I mean, that's like what's interesting is it's the same problem. It's like logistics and the amount of time that something can go without being in a cold state. It's just you're right. It's not. They're not yet inserting a sensor into each HelloFresh box.
Yes.
Yet, who knows where this is headed.
Exactly. Yeah, I do think it's an hours thing. I actually stopped ordering chicken entirely this summer because I got one box and everything was melted and I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I was like, okay, we're not doing chicken during the summertime, but now it's cooling down a bit, so we might incorporate that back.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm here in Michigan, I mean, half the year you wouldn't even have to refrigerate it. You could just leave it on the porch for days and it would stay fresh because, it's 20 degrees out.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've already kind of gotten into some fun discussions. I would like to go into the official fun bits, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So wrapping back to your origin story, and I want to know more about these visualizations that you're creating from your Marvel card spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so if you go back to the 90s, early 90s, that was, there was like this collectible boom of all sorts of stuff, like basketball. It's kind of like the one we had during the pandemic, right? Where like Pokemon cards went insane, prices on, everything. My dad's a coin collector. Like the price of coins went bananas during the pandemic. There was like this boom in the 90s. And so, Marvel cards came out and each card had like the you would look at the back of the card and it would, nerds abiding need for like to quantify everything, of course, means that the back of the card has got the stats that quantifies exactly how fast is, Quicksilver versus some other character. And so I would literally spend hours just flipping the cards over, and like I learned how to build a table, right? And I'd have a column for each of the attributes, and and the first column would be the name of the superhero, and I basically built it was like my own little database of of the stats from the cards, so that I could then make the charts. And then insert my own opinion, right? Like I would say, well, I don't actually think, they gave Wolverine a 2 on strength, but I think he's a 3. So I'd override it and then look at the update that it made to the charts. And that was fun for me. Like I don't know. You would think maybe I would have taken the hint and just gone straight into this field, but I'm glad I spent my time in the theater world. Actually, that has proved enormously helpful in my career with the soft skills and that sort of stuff that we talk about nowadays in data. But yeah, and that just carried through, right? Both the data stuff and the nerd stuff. So that's kind of, to this day, that's who I am.
Yes. Do you remember any ultimate insights that you came to with the Marvel cards?
If you look at the stats all around, okay, while he's not the most powerful in any individual category, I think probably the Silver Surfer, like if you were to do a sum of all attributes, okay, would have the highest number, because he's like, he's like 80% as strong as the Hulk. He's 80% as fast as whoever the fastest was, right? He's 80% as smart as Reed Richards. He's 80% as, so it's like you add all that up, and he's just a super powerful character, which is also happens to be like probably my favorite Marvel superhero. And so maybe that's why, actually, is because I did the math. And he had like the most powerful, looking at the card, it's like, this guy's good at everything. But that's the one thing that most stands out of my mind anyways.
Mm-hmm. He's not one that I ever really got into too much.
Yeah. He's kind of, it's kind of like he's kind of niche at this point, right? Like I think he was
Mhm.
like quite popular in the 60s and 70s, like in like the cosmic Marvel era, you know, but nowadays he's a lot less known, especially because like Marvel didn't have the rights to the Fantastic Four, which is who he's associated with, and so he's
That's
not part of the MCU, right? And if you're not
yeah.
part of the MCU, then it's kind of like, you know, it's all about the movies nowadays, not the comic books. And so if you're not in the movies, then nowadays nobody knows who you are.
True. That is very
Yeah,
fair. And the Fantastic Four movies, nobody ever does those right anyway.
they're bad. Like they're all bad.
Yeah.
I think Maro. I think they're gonna. I seem to recall. I don't follow it nearly as closely as I used to, but I seem to recall they're gonna reboot it again and try another
Mhm.
Fantastic Four movie. And I mean,
Okay.
fingers crossed, because I do like the Fantastic Four a lot, but the existing films are all not good.
Yeah. Didn't they wait? Didn't they have to cancel it? Because wasn't Jim from The Office going to be one of the characters? And then something happened.
I think you're right. Yeah, yeah.
I remember that.
Yes, he for sure was. Like they were going to cast him as Reed Richards, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's actually the last thing I heard about it. So maybe that does mean
Yeah.
it's been canned. I don't know, but
Bummer.
yeah, and that's our only hope to get the Silver Surfer like in a in a movie. Maybe that doesn't stink. And I'm not holding out hope for it though. I'm okay with him to um, I've made my peace with the fact that he's probably not going to be a major character going forward. It's okay. My 9-year-old self is disappointed, but I'll survive.
Okay, so from one nerdy topic to the next, you are also a dungeon master.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I one time ran a D&D campaign so good that 2 of the guys in it had to drop out of college.
What?
They flunked out. They couldn't handle it because we were staying up all night in the dorms, like in the common area of the dorms at Western Michigan University, staying up till 4 a.m. playing Dungeons and Dragons. And really it was like the guys who could still achieve a passing grade. I'm not going to say any of us got good grades, but a passing grade, stayed in college. And the ones who couldn't, yeah, flunked out. And actually, that whole group of guys are still my friends. And many of them did eventually go on to finish college. But yeah, that was that freshman year. It was an awesome D&D campaign, that's for sure. So yeah, that's was a real passion of mine for a long time. I don't get to play nearly as much. I have 3 young kids, and that kind of they're in the pre-D&D age, so like they're not. My oldest is 7, and so she's really getting to the point where her and I play Pokemon cards, and she's getting to the point where like we could probably try out some tabletop role playing, but then the 5-year-old and obviously the 2-year-old are not quite ready for that. So my D&D playing has gone way down. But yeah, I really love playing Dungeons and Dragons, and in a weird way, I think it's like actually it can be quite helpful for data people because it like teaches you to really listen to what other people are saying. Like the only way anyone has fun is if we all listen, right, to one another and like are empathic with one another, and then the game is great. And that's also such a vital skill to have as a data person, because before you build anything, you need to figure out what to build in the first place. And of course, that process is a process of not interacting with systems or tools. It's a process of interacting with people.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to know exactly what all of the characters are able to do and fold in creativity on building out what you want to do.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And it's no fun. Like if one person, if like nobody has, the thing I love about it is like nobody has fun unless everybody has fun. Right. Like that, like that's kind of how it, at least when I'm, that's my philosophy when I'm running a game. And, um, and so it's one of those things like, yeah, everybody has to be working together and be listening to one another, in order to like construct on the fly this experience. And that's what I love. I think that's what I love about it, right? Is like working with
Mhm.
other people that like tell a story together that emerges from our interactions as human beings. That's the most fun part. I mean, of course, being a nerd, I also love like the number crunching and which skill am I going to do what with, and if I put a point here, well, that, all the min maxing stuff, that's all cool too. But the more exciting, and the reason I like being the dungeon master, I think, is because of the like helping to guide the story and help everybody have fun is what's most fun for me.
Mhm. Do you think that someone needs to build some tabletop role-playing games for children? I think that would be beneficial to help them start out young.
Yes. So I do have one. There are a
Okay.
few. There's
Okay.
one. There's one called No Thank You Evil. That is like I think it's designed to be started at I think 5 is
Oh,
like,
that's so cool.
yeah, and it's very straightforward. It's a very very simple rule set. It's kind of like not dumbed down, but it's a simplified version of the cipher system, which is a really interesting like storytelling based system. It's a little less number heavy than Dungeons and Dragons, and a little more like like collaborative storytelling tools or rules. In any case, that's a cool game that I have been intending to try with my oldest too. I just haven't, life is complicated. And so I haven't gotten around to it yet, but there should be more, right? And, cause I'm sure there are others, but that's the only one I'm aware of.
Mhm.
And it's definitely the type of thing, like, if you want to get your kids like out from in front of the TV and out from in front of the phone, I think tabletop gaming is the type of thing that if you have to start it early enough with them that like they develop a passion for it. Do you play tabletop?
I played a game. We didn't even finish the game because our friends moved away. But I was trying. I was not good at it. I was
Yeah.
too creative, I think. I tried talking to a rat and asking it which direction we're supposed to go, and it cursed at me and ran away. And I was like, okay. Because I had animals speaking abilities, so I could talk to
Yeah.
animals. And I thought that was the coolest thing. I was like, well, this rat knows, probably knows which direction we're supposed to be headed. And it was like, nope, bye.
That's what happens when the person who's running the game is like, oh, she's doing things I didn't plan. That then
That might have
yeah.
been the case.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's part of the fun of it, right? Is like that's what I enjoy about it is like having a player who's creative and is going to say, what if I talk to this rat and suddenly I have to be like, oh, geez, I didn't think of that. What is the rat going to say? And you
Yep.
just have to make it up on the fly. It's pretty fun.
So I do think that starting the kids out young for these types of games to help them do these problem solving, communication skills, creativity, and all of that, help them
Yeah.
learn how to be a data professional, right? Someday we want them all to be data professionals.
I mean, if you look at it, like, what does Dungeons and Dragons teach you? Okay, you've got a really complicated manual that you have to read to play the game. Okay, that's like looking at the docs. Okay, and then you've got the actual system you need to learn, which is like a numeric system, with a random number generator thrown on top of it in the form of the dice. So you got to do this analysis of the different components of the system to assemble a character the best way possible. And when it comes to the actual playing, of course, you need to be able to go above and beyond just the math in order to really communicate with other human beings, figure out what they need, take into account what you need, and work together to build the story. I mean, it is data career training 101.
It really is. So, with everything, including Dungeons and Dragons, you have to start by learning something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I like to ask all of my guests is, how do you go about learning new things? What are your go-to resources?
I learned a lot from like the data community, honestly. Like I really learn a lot. This is maybe a slightly lame thing to say, but like on LinkedIn, I actually learn a lot. I think there some people love LinkedIn, some people hate LinkedIn. I think if you use it the right way, you can actually really learn a lot, and you can learn. You can figure out where to go to learn, right? Like I've so many interesting data books I discovered through LinkedIn. I'm reading Donald Farmer's new book right now. Donald Farmer has, like been in the data industry for a long time. He worked at Microsoft. He was the architect of a lot of like the analytics functions in SQL Server and SQL Server information services and analysis services, right? He published a new book. It's really cool about like product innovation and how to be an innovative thinker in kind of the product and data space. I only knew that because I saw on LinkedIn that someone else was reading the book, right? And so I use that actually to just kind of keep track of what's going on in the data industry. And then, I mean, I mostly read. I'm a reader, and so I like to read. I'm reading Donald Farmer's book. I do a lot of. I'm kind of, really in like the enterprise space at this point. So I have a lot of conversations with people at very kind of high level, analytics system design and like analytics practice design and that sort of thing. So, Zhamak's book on data mesh is like dramatic. It's like, it's so incredibly influential. I recommend everybody read it, even if you don't work somewhere that's doing data mesh, and even if you never ever will. I think the ideas about product thinking and domain-oriented design and domain-oriented architectures in analytics are really going to are spreading throughout our industry, even if like the data mesh concept itself has more limited adoption. Like the pieces of it you see all over the place, right? So that's really, I mean, that's what I do to learn. So if that's, because I'm not really, my day-to-day job, I don't use, like I said, I don't do a lot of practitioner, like hands to keyboard data development anymore, unfortunately. And so, that means that when I hear stuff like, oh, Rust is taking off in data science, for example, like, 5 years ago, I would have been like, oh, where can I go to learn Rust? And now it's like, that's an interesting thing to know, but I don't have time to learn Rust anymore. But that's really it. Yeah. Read, and, talk to people. I think you can learn so much from your peers, online and in person. That's another thing I do, is I just, I have people who I talk to whose opinions I trust, that I learn so much from. And I think that's me, right? I tend to be like a social learner in a lot of ways. I learn by being like part of a community, is the way I learn best.
Yeah. Community learning is good. Yeah. And who doesn't like LinkedIn?
It's funny. I mean, I agree, obviously, like you and I are both on LinkedIn a lot. Let's be real, but, but it's definitely like I also hang out on Reddit, a
Okay,
lot.
that's a
And
good one.
yeah, I mean, really like the Reddit, I'm kind of in the data engineering, business intelligence side of things. And both of the data engineering and business intelligence subreddits are very active, and there's like a really good conversation. If you want to know kind of what your peers think in like an unfiltered way, because it's disconnected from their IRL identities,
Yep.
you can go to Reddit and you'll get it, for better or worse, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I like the unfiltered. That was a great way to explain that.
yeah. I recommend checking that out too. And whatever specialty you have in data, I guarantee there's a subreddit for it. Both the big ones. If you're a data scientist, obviously there's a data science subreddit, but probably every open source tool you use and they all have their own little subreddits and communities too. And that can be a great resource to learn.
Yeah. I never thought to look at Reddit. Maybe I can find more audit data peeps.
There probably is like
Yeah.
a subreddit focused specifically on that sort of thing.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So, do you have any final words of encouragements or recommendations for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest recommendation is like, in the data world, it's easy to get caught up in the technology and the tools and the skills, and that's all very exciting, right? But at the end of the day, I think my recommendation to people, my advice is that of all of the different flavors of tech you could have chosen to work in, you chose the one that is most about people, right? And understanding what they need, and ultimately what will make them successful. Like in many organizations, probably in most organizations, data is in many ways a facilitator role. You are facilitating the success of other departments, right? And so my biggest piece of advice is to really focus on that and figure out how to make your end users, or the people consuming your data, like if you can figure out how data can make them successful, that's what will make you successful in data, right? That's what makes you ultimately the most valuable, right? And so, that's a piece of advice I think I'm constantly reminding myself. And I think no matter how long you've been in this field or what your specialty is in data, always go back to how can I use data to make the business people I work with successful, and then ultimately that will feed back to your own success.
Great advice. Well, thank you so very much, Ryan, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Monica. This was really fun. I don't often get to do a data interview where we spend half the time talking about Dungeons and Dragons and superheroes. So I really appreciate it.
I love it. If the audience has any questions for you, where can they find and/or follow you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Ryan Dolley. I'm very active on there, so just look me up there. Also, the Super Data Brothers YouTube channel. You can check that out. Our show is every Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern. It's a live show, so just drop in and say hello at any time. And would look forward to getting to know everybody out there. And thanks for having me on the show, Monica.
Yes, thank you again. And as always, folks, happy learning.